Just got a new camera, so now I have to actually justify owning this thing. So I will explain to you in my best possible way how I get gigs, okay? So let's go. No, I'm kidding. I'm not doing that transition. Everybody does it. Okay, so you want to know how to get a gig. That's why you clicked on this video of my beautiful mug. I'm just going to explain to you how I went about getting big gigs when I first started. So first of all, let's just start with the number one thing. Start small. I'm sure you've heard this 1,000 times. Start small. You're talking like local bars and things of that nature. Busking. There's some people who only busk and they have a huge following from it. So if you're a small enough creator or musician that like you have a little 3-piece that you could set up on the corner of downtown, or if you're by yourself and you can have like a little setup for tracks or whatever, you know, be creative with it. Busking is totally an option. Don't let people discredit it, because I've seen it work before and it does work. So don't throw that out. But you want to play it somewhere, I'll just explain how I got my first gig. It was probably in like 2015. I was in the band Lararium at the time. I think what I did was I just looked up a bar that I knew played metal bands, and I found who the promoter was, and I just messaged them on Facebook Messenger. I was like, hey, I have a band, you know, we're new, can we play at your bar? They booked us for something. So that's not always gonna work for everybody, but you know, start somewhere with that. If I was doing it today with the knowledge I have now, I would first create an EPK, which is an electronic press kit, if you don't know what that is. There's a lot of good videos on these on how to make them and stuff, but basically it's like a landing page for a bunch of info about your band, like your bio, pictures, videos, music. If you have those things, you don't have to have all of those things on the EPK, but it does help. So I would start with making that if I was doing it over today. Start making an EPK and then start emailing venues and promoters and bands with your EPK, being like, hey, we're new, we're looking for a gig, here's our EPK. That's what I would do. And usually it's gonna take a lot. You're gonna do a lot of emailing. I still do it to this day. I'll email tons of venues, never hear anything back, and then boom, one hits back. You know, I emailed 15 venues and only one responds. That's normal. It's a numbers game. You're gonna have to keep doing it until you get a name for yourself, and then people start asking you. Not always. You still will probably have to send out emails, but you will get asked more often than never. Say you get your first gig. Once that happens, whatever bands you're playing with, be friends with them. If you can. I know you can't be friends with every band, but if you get along with the people enough, be friends with them, because being friends with other bands goes a long ways. That's like a huge portion of where my shows come from, is other bands being like, hey, we have this thing going on, do you want to jump on with us? Yeah, I would love to. That's where a lot of shows come from. So being friends with other bands, and plus you want to help the scene. You want everyone to kind of be there to support each other, so you want to be friends with these bands anyways, because it's good for the local scene. And do not be above venues. Don't be above other venues. I've seen this time and time again where bands will be like, oh yeah, I want gigs, but I'm not playing at that place. Let me tell you something. Some of the coolest shows I've ever played have been at really divey things, or just weird off-the-wall things. We did a show in a barn, someone's barn out in the middle of nowhere, and once we got there I was like, how is this gonna go? But it was awesome. There was a bunch of people, there's people doing fire breathing. It was really wild, out in the middle of nowhere in a barn. So don't discredit, you know, venues or weird shows, you know, within reason. And, you know, again, it comes back to being friendly. Be friendly to all these people. No one cares about like, if you think your band is the best because you're in some progressive death metal mixed with shoegaze band, no one cares, okay? Just be nice. I don't know how to explain that. Just be nice to other bands and realize that music is subjective. Do not think you're above other bands. I've seen that a lot too, and then guess what? Those people that are in those bands, a couple years down the road, you don't see them playing in the live scene anymore because nobody asks them to come back out because they're not fun to be around. You can also create your own gig. So if you have a PA system or something lying around and you're like, okay, I want a gig, but I can't seem to get into the market, no one's booking us. Okay, well, say you have a PA system. You might be able to find somewhere where you can host a show like the one that I did in the barn for these people. They hosted that show and they asked us to play, and I was like, yeah, I guess. And when we got there, it ended up being awesome. So say you have a PA system and somewhere you could have the bands play. All right, you're putting on your own show then. Then you start contacting other local musicians. Hey, putting on a little small thing. It's this date. We're shooting for a couple months out. Do you think you would want to play? Someone will bite. Someone will bite and play. So that's one other way you could do it. You could just do your own thing. And then lastly, it's 2025, so you could just stream, you know? And that's the reality, is like a lot of people would like to see streaming anyways. Still, I know you want to do regular shows. Like every person in a band wants to do regular shows. Why wouldn't you? They're awesome. But the reality is that you can actually gain a pretty good following and get your name out there by streaming, and you can treat it like a show, you know, depending on your setup and everything. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents. It's not like super in depth on everything, but just like, that's how I go about it. Hopefully this is helpful to you. So let me know in the comments if you liked this and if you think this was helpful. Man, it is really coming down out here. Looks pretty though. Don't mind my dog whining. He thinks that I'm going for a walk without him, and I am not. But that's what he thinks is going on. So in his mind, I am a traitor. So there's really no reason for me to even show you this video other than it's pretty out here, and I wanted you to see it. So enjoy. This is the guy who thought I was going without him. He's like so upset. He's like, how dare you leave without me? I wasn't going anywhere. Little stinker. We weren't going anywhere. This guy didn't care so much. He cared a little bit. Yeah, that's true.